Hey guys, welcome back. It is your favorite Gimp with a Limp, and I'm here with the playthrough that I told you I was going to do for Blood Red Skies. I wanted to show off some of the new stuff, some of the new rules, some of the cool things that you can do with it. So I am going to be using the rules from this bigger rule book, and we're going to be incorporating a sea battle. So kind of like a midway thing. And one of the things I wanted to show you guys before we got started on it was these little doohickeys. So the box itself does come with some cardboard ship tokens, but I'd had these. I'd gotten them way back when because I've been interested in trying Victory at Sea, also by Warlord Games. And one of the things is that game comes with a bunch of resin ships, right? So the ships are kind of expensive. You can't really afford to get a whole navy. You'd like it, but I wanted to expand what came with like the base game. So I found these on eBay, actually, and it's by a company called Varulf. Let me make sure I'm saying that right. VARULF.games, right? So if you're interested in these, you can check them out. They've got a whole bunch of them. You're going to see them on the table. This is what I'm using instead of the cardboard ones. And part of the thing I like about it is they're flat. So if I fly a plane across it, I can set the stand right there on top of it, and it doesn't really change my board up very much, right? Now, of course, you could do the same with the little cardboard ones. You can't do that with a 3D resin printed model, but this is bigger. It looks cooler. This is the Zuikaku. So it's actually named ships, and they look really cool on the board. Now, I will make sure and annotate this because it's something I first missed when I looked at it. That the way these are designed, they are etched. Okay, so what that means is when you get it, you'll see just a little baby outline of what's there, but it doesn't show up as clear as what you're seeing here. And the way you do it is you peel off the little brown paper that's going to be on there. Make sure you get it all. Fingernail works really good for that. Don't use something hard and metal because it'll scratch it up. And then take a crayon and just go across it. Boom. And it'll fill it in. Use whatever color you want. White probably is the best, white or silver. And as you go across it, you'll fill it in. And of course, the crayon will stay in the etch. And bam, there you go. It names out the ship, looks real good, and looks good on the table with a nice little blue background. They've got a bunch of different designs that you guys can check out. They didn't send me anything. I got this myself many months back. Planes, ships, destroyers, carriers, all that cool stuff. So anything you're interested in, if you like what you're seeing here, definitely check that out. If you like Victory at Sea and want to have a bigger game, but you don't want to have to spend a fortune to do it, you can get a lot of planes and ships rather cheaply that way. The only thing is you would have to buy the rulebook, the expanded rulebook for Victory at Sea, so you have the stats for all those ships. I still haven't got that. I haven't had the extra money for it, so I might have to get that later on, but I'm not covering Victory at Sea yet, so I'll get that when I get closer to filling in. Sorry for the long-winded start, but I did want to give credit to these ships that you guys are going to see on the board. So let's go down and show you the planes and how everything's going to happen. All right, so we're over here at the table taking a quick look, and I've got a roughly 3x3. It's just a touch under vertical 3x3 because I ran out of table space. But I got a quick little battle here set up where we've got some American planes coming in from the left, and their goal is to get the Zuikaku right over there. So they're doing a dive bombing mission, trying to take that one out. We've got a line of 6 Zeros coming in here from the right, and they're going to be pushing in. Their only mission is to take out the American fighters that are coming in, try to stop them from getting onto the Zuikaku. But the way I did this, I kind of just eyeballed it as far as the points were concerned. Each side has 6 planes, but the American side has a touch better planes because they do have the Bearcats versus the Zeros. The Zeros do have a natural disadvantage, which I'll show you here in just a sec. But the points do kind of even out in the fact that the Japanese, the Zeros here, have 3 ships providing flak for them as well. So I've given them 2 destroyers and the aircraft carrier that is the target. So each one of these destroyers has a flak firepower of 2, while the aircraft carrier has a flak firepower of 4. So it's going to be putting out a massive amount of fire. The amount of fire that's coming from these ships is going to more than make up for the little bit of extra firepower that the 4 Bearcats have. And still, regardless, it's 4 Bearcats versus 6 Zeros. And they do have 2 Dauntless dive bombers, but they are slow and they are laden. So they're going to have penalties on top of them. So let's take a look at the stats for each one of the aircraft real quick. Okay, so as we're looking at it, we've got our Hellcat, which I have shown you guys previously, but these are really good fighters. 2 firepower, 2 maneuverability, and they are fast at 8 on their speed. And it does show the 380 down there below. So you can, if they're tied in speed, you can use that as a way to distinguish who's actually faster. And looking at our Dauntless here, we can see that this one's different. It's got the dive bomber trait. It does have a little bit of firepower at 1, and it's not as maneuverable with only a 1, and definitely slower with a speed of 5. So it's not going very fast, but it does have a turret. We see its rear turret firepower is a 1. That is going to come in handy when it's flying because it can defend its butt, basically, when a Japanese Zero tries to get on the back of it. Plus, the dive bomber trait gives it the ability to come in on these ships, and it can go from an advantaged state all the way down to disadvantage, which you generally can't do, and it can give it a bonus when it's trying to do a bombing run on one of these ships. Now, unfortunately for the Dauntless, though, it does have a penalty that's going to come into play because it's got bombs. So it's counted as laden. So I grabbed the card out, going to keep it with it, so I know that these dive bombers are being penalized right now. So it gets put on it, and until it's unladen, so until it drops its bombs, it has a -1 pilot skill, -1 speed, and cannot climb for advantage if an enemy is within 18 inches. That is a tremendous amount of space. So basically, they can climb for advantage right there at the start, but that's about it. Any other time, the Zeros are going to get close, and that's not going to work. They're not going to be able to get up to altitude. It's kind of signifying the fact that they're too slow and sluggish to actually get away from another aircraft. So more than likely, I'm going to have them climb right there off the start and try to keep them away from those Zeros as they're going in so they can be as high as possible, because they get in a bonus to that attack for each level that they go down. So if they go from advantaged to disadvantaged, so effectively diving in, they get a +2 as a bonus to their attack. But if they only go from a neutral down to a disadvantaged, then they're only getting a +1. Thing is, for them to conduct a bombing run or for the fighters to do a strafing run on these ships, they have to be disadvantaged. They have to be effectively low down to the ground to be able to get their hits on their target, but that makes them vulnerable to the Japanese aircraft that are coming in after them. Now, I am giving them a few cards that they get to play, and the way that I'm playing these, there's a couple of different ways. You can draw a hand of cards, or you can just have them laid out. Since I don't have too many aircraft, I'm just doing the thing where you lay out the cards and draw from them. I've got a couple of cards each for, or actually rather one card each, should I say, for the Hellcats, and then a single card here that I'm going to be able to play for the Dauntless dive bombers. For the Hellcats, they've got rapid roll. So when it's during its activation, it may make its normal 45-degree turn at the beginning or the end of its movement. So it gets to turn a little bit sooner if it wants to, playing the card. And effectively, when I play one of these cards, I'll just flip it over to acknowledge the fact that that's been played this turn. So I'll have to wait and on the next turn get to flip it back over. Then we've got robust, and this counts for the fact that the aircraft's kind of durable. Those Hellcats were built to last. So in reaction to one of the Hellcats being attacked, you can reduce the number of dice rolled for the attack by 1. That'll come in handy. Japanese Zero tries to attack one, play one of these cards, boom, the attack is a little bit less. We also have interlocking fire, and that's for the Dauntless. So in reaction to a plane with a turret firepower rating being attacked, add +1 firepower for every other friendly plane within range of the attacker with a turret and arc. So basically the two Dauntlesses can try to kind of support each other, but that's not going to come in handy until later because I've started them off in like 2 little wings here. couple of Hellcats in the Dauntless, couple of Hellcats in the Dauntless up here in this corner. And my general plan is to kind of swoop in and kind of X across. So when they get over here, they'll be able to support each other. But until then, that's not going to help them out too much. As for the Zero, this is the aircraft. We got 6 of these fighting the Americans. Firepower of 1, so their firepower isn't the greatest, but they are maneuverable. They have a maneuverability of 3. That's going to make them very dodgy when they have incoming fire. They've got a speed of 7, so they're not the fastest. They're definitely faster than those Dauntless, though, so they'll be able to creep in on them. But the Hellcats will be able to peel away if they need to. Unfortunately for the Zeros, though, they do have the vulnerable trait. You can see that's listed down right here. And it means that the aircraft has flaws. So these aircraft were built without armor and they didn't have the defensive capabilities that American aircraft did. This signifies that. A vulnerable aircraft being shot at increase the firepower of the shooting attack by 1 before the dice are rolled. So when you're shooting at these guys, you get to add 1 die to it. That's going to make it a little bit easier to knock these screwballs out of the sky. But they've got some bonus cards for them as well. So just like I gave my Hellcats 4 cards, I've got 4 cards here for the Zeros, 2 of each, deep pockets and no stalling. For deep pockets, it's in reaction to a deep pocket squadron receiving a boom chit. The boom chit is discarded. So remember, boom chits are one of the victory goals you can go for. This makes it to where it's harder to actually inflict those. They can effectively disregard the first couple they're going to get. That's going to take some of the edge off of them being vulnerable like that. Then when they've got no stalling, on a plane with this trait during its movement, the plane moves between 1 inch and half speed and may make its normal 45-degree turn at any point. Counts as a tight turn for doctrines. So effectively, they can move a short distance and whip around. That's just playing more into that maneuverability. The Hellcats are kind of like boom and zoomers. They'll come zooming in, shoot them up, try to peel away. The Zeros can do more of a turning, slow dogfight and try to get around in on their 6. All right, and just to show you guys very quickly the stats for our destroyer, we see it's got 2 point hits and 2 hull hits. These come into play. Basically, certain types of attacks will do points, certain types of attacks will do hulls, and then it's flak value. So this one's got a flak value of 2, can roll a couple of dice. It can do that when it's being attacked, like a strafing run coming in, trying to do damage to them. They do get to fire their flak before the attack actually lands. So there's a good chance they can actually shoot them down. And they do have qualities like hardened, mobile, and ship. And then we also have our aircraft carrier here on the back, and you can see it's got better stats. 4 on its light flak and 4 on points and hull hits. Same type of stats that the destroyer had, except it's also volatile, so it makes it a little bit easier to destroy it. Basically, the stats on these can reduce the amount of dice being thrown or negate some of the hits. It depends on... I think armor's the one that negates some of the hits. I'll have to check that real quick. Yeah, the mobile makes it to where they lose dice when they're trying to conduct an attack against them. But the volatile, like the aircraft carrier has, actually grants them +1 on the firepower dice. So it almost cancels out, with the exception of the fact that these ships have double the penalties involved with them. Because of the mobile aspect, so it makes them even harder to hit. So it's going to be a little bit of a chore trying to get these attacks through. One last thing before we kind of get started here, when it does come to the bombing attacks that we're going to see from our Dauntless, since they are a single engine fighter, they carry effectively light bombs, which means they only get a firepower of 1, which means it's going to be their pilot skill plus whatever firepower they have, which is the 1. And then any modifiers that are going to apply when they're trying to do that, when they try to drop their attacks. If they have medium or heavy bombers, those can have like 2 or 3 firepower. They're carrying heavier bombs. For us with the Dauntless, we just know that, boom, it's 1 firepower for the equivalent of the bombing diving run that they're doing on them. One last thing I did want to add before we got started here. I did notice something because some people had asked me about the ships, or the aircraft rather, and how they fit on the pegs. The rest of them, the Zeros, the Hellcats, they were great. The Dauntless, not so much. The Dauntless was actually rather loose. This is a third one that I've got painted up with little bombs and stuff on it. Actually came out pretty good. Oh, by the way, look, I got decals. I'm so proud of that. I've never put a decal on before, but someone posted in my previous video how to do decals. Definitely go check it out. He put a link to it and it worked really well. I was finally able to do decals. So happy about that. Anyway, you can see the Dauntless is a little loose. I was able to fix that up on the other two. I just took a little piece of double-sided tape and wrapped that around this top little piece of peg here. That way it thickened it up just a little bit and got it to stick on there better. I would rather it be probably a little too tight than a little too loose, because it's easier to just whittle that out just a tiny bit to get it to snug in versus trying to fill that space with something. But the double-sided tape did work well enough. All right, so I'm finally done explaining everything, what we're doing here. We're going to jump in to our little activation order here. Now, the way it's going to work, I did it simple for each side. Each side got 3 level 4 pilots and 3 level 3 pilots. Just made it simple across the board, and I put them all at neutral to start. Not having to worry about rolling anything. We're just going to start neutral. They're all flying in. They're all going after each other. That is going to cause us a little bit of a traffic jam here at the start, because when you are doing your activation order, it's kind of the reverse of X-Wing, where your better pilots go last. Here, you want your better pilots to go first, because you do get that chance to shoot starting off the bat. So you want to be able to shoot before your opponent can do so. The way it's going to work is your advantage state is going to determine when you're going to be firing. So whoever is advantaged, tilted back with their aircraft pointed up, is going to be going first in pilot skill order, then neutral, pilot skill order, and then disadvantaged, same thing. So with all of us at neutral, we're all here, which means all my level 4s are going to go, then all the level 3s are going to go for both sides. The thing is, where they tie, you go to speed. So the Hellcats will go before the Zeros will go before the Dauntless. Now remember, we're going to use these for our little maneuver sticks. Still gotta say I love these. These are very, very nice little upgraded components. Definitely like that. And for turning, we're gonna have this little token, this little plastic piece. And again, love the nice little upgrade here. The front of the aircraft will go there, and it can turn up until the edge. All right, so you can point it that way, unless you're doing something else that's going to increase your maneuver, like diving for extra speed or something like that. All right, so we'll move around, and I'll probably speed up this section, fast forward through it after the first couple of aircraft have been moved, just so I can show you guys how it's done real quick. We're going to place this next to our aircraft. Remember, we're starting with our pilot skill 4s, which means we're going to have our 2 Bearcats here that are level 4 moving. Then the level 4s on the Japanese aircraft are going to move. And then our level 4 Dauntless will go. And then we're going to do the same thing with all of our level 3s. I think my general plan is going to be to have, like I said, the Bearcats come in maybe this way and just try to keep the Zeros off and try to creep behind, go slow with the Dauntless, and see about cutting them into the center to try to hit that aircraft carrier. Remember, we're going to have flak coming in from here and flak coming in from here. The one good part about flak is when you're attacking, you do take flak attacks, right? When you're doing your attack, but they also fire at the end of each turn. So after all the aircraft have gone, flak gets to fire out, but they fire at the closest aircraft that's disadvantaged. That means Japanese aircraft too, because it counts for the things being hectic and they were just shooting at everything with wings. So they can potentially shoot their own aircraft. If they're disadvantaged and they're the closest plane, they'll get shot at instead of the American aircraft. But obviously the dive bombers want to get in close. They're all going to swarm up and get the little bird's nest going on over here, which means anyone can potentially be shot at. Anyway, we'll drop down here, on down our little plane, put it, and where we want to go. I think we're going to go this direction. For them, I'm going to move them at full speed. Since this only goes up to 7, I'll move him up to the 7 and then pop him forward. One more on it. And I can move him at this point if I want to. And I think I'm just going to turn him just a hair down this way, try to keep him going straight along. All right, so from here, I'm just going to fast forward real quick through the moving. All right, so I'm cutting in here real quick to point out the fact that I forgot to do their pilot action after their move with the first couple. And you do have a list of options, which is shoot, outmaneuver, or climb. Since no one's in range yet, don't have to worry about shooting. And outmaneuvering is the same thing. It's where you want to try to get in a good position and hopefully lower the advantage of the opposing aircraft. Since, again, we're still out of range, I'm just climbing pretty much with everyone, and it raises their advantage by 1. So that's why you're seeing them pointing up. Now, I went back and flipped them up. So they're all trying to climb, get in good positions before they start coming in on each other. One more last thing that I wanted to mention before I move my Dauntless back there is I am keeping these tokens next to them to represent the fact that they are laden. After they drop their first set of bombs, I'll take this off and remove that penalty. But this way, just I've got a little mnemonic reminder that they are still penalized and will be flying at a disadvantage. Those Dauntless, though, I think I'm going to go slow with them. Bring them in slow, try to let the Hellcats get stuck in first before I really get going on those guys. So I'm probably going to move them. 5 is their fastest, but I'm not going to go their full speed, maybe 3 or 4. That's why I grabbed the slower stick here. All right, so now that we've done all of our pilot skill force, same thing. We got to do it with the 3s, which means, again, we'll do our Hellcats, then our 0s, then the last Dauntless that I have sitting over here. And again, I'm probably going to try to hang these guys back and let the Bearcats get stuck in first. Or is Bearcat or Hellcat? I keep saying it wrong. Hellcat. I've been calling it Bearcat the whole damn time. My apologies. Let the Hellcats get stuck in first. That way they can provide a little bit of cover, because I really don't want a 0 getting in on their 6, because they can get outmaneuvered. They still got a gun turret back there, but it's not the best thing in the world, and those 0s can take them down pretty quick. And remember, the name of this game is trying to keep your guys together with a wingman, because as long as you got a wingman, you can't get outmaneuvered and get that tailing bonus. If an enemy gets on your 6, pointing right at you without someone else covering you, keeping them in their gun sights, then they get a tailing bonus, and it can knock out your advantage and make it to where you're very easy to be taken out. Now, while I'm thinking about it, looking at these 0s are technically within range of the aircraft carrier and the destroyer here. So at the end of this turn, technically, yes, they would be in range to be shot at, but they are all advantaged, which means they wouldn't have to worry about it anyway. If you're advantaged, you're effectively flying so high that you're not going to get shot at. But until I get my guys in and they actually start sticking in with the attack, I'm not going to have the destroyer or the aircraft carrier firing, because they're not going to just automatically start targeting their own aircraft. When these planes get in and start shooting, strafing runs, all that stuff, then yes, the Japanese aircraft will be vulnerable. But until then, no. All right, so here's my strategy. I don't know how well it's going to work, but I'm going to kind of split off in threes. I've got, or not threes, but twos rather. I've got two of the Hellcats here, and they're going to come along and try to cover this low angle. And both of my Dauntlesses, one is up here at the bottom edge of the board. He's cut in straight towards the aircraft carrier, and they've got 3 zeros heading in on them. But then the same thing is happening back here in the back, where there is another 3 zeros. They're all climbed up for advantage, and they're flying straight in. These two Hellcats are coming in straight at them, try to disrupt them. And the last Dauntless went a little slow over this way. Although now that I'm thinking about it, I think I just screwed both of those Dauntlesses, because those Hellcats can scream in, but once they fly in, there's just going to be a couple of Dauntlesses puttering along, heading for an aircraft carrier, while 3 zeros have flown past the Hellcats. That might end up being a problem. We'll have to see how that plays out. All right, but you guys stay tuned for the next one. We're going to go ahead and pause it here so I can keep the videos relatively at a decent size. The next one, we'll get stuck in with all of our aircraft, have the Hellcat scream in, and we'll see how well they do, or if I gave too big an advantage to the Japanese with the aircraft carrier and the 2 destroyers. Because the range that they have, I mean, it's the whole side of this board. Because you're measuring out from this stick, they can cover up and down. Same for that destroyer up there, and obviously same for the aircraft carrier. So measuring out to here, they're easily covering with overlapping fields of fire, which you would have expected with the naval convoy like that. So as soon as the American aircraft pretty much cross this line, they're just going to be taking massive amounts of flak. Whole point, though, I don't care how many of them get shot down, it's getting the Zuikaku. If they can get the Zuikaku, they win. If they don't get the Zuikaku, the Japanese win. I gotta say, it looks good on the board. I definitely like this. It looks like Midway. I got the aircraft screaming in. Now, I know there weren't Hellcats there, but I still wanted to use the Hellcats, so bite me. But I especially love these little tokens, the ones that I added in. A little bit bigger, easier to see. They're not as colorful, but they just look good on the board. And I like that blue color there on it as well. Plus, like I was saying, you can use those to expand your games of like Victory at Sea or something like that. Anyway, you guys stay tuned. We'll definitely have some combat going on the next one, because once they start coming in here, they're going to be at the right height and everything to start shooting at each other. And the next round, definitely with the attacks going on, that means these ships are all going to start firing. All right, but that's going to be it for this one. You guys take care. I will catch you in the next one.